My name is Michael Hayes, and I'm 67 years old, a retired teacher. That night, I only meant to take the trash out to the porch. But the moment the door swung open, rain came down in sheets. The yellow porch light broke into shards across the wet brick floor. And I froze. By the gate, something lay still, like a lump of black soil. For a second, I thought someone had dropped a clump of mud, and then it blinked. I went cold. Lying there was a Doberman puppy, no more than a month old, its tiny body caked in hard, dry mud, looking more like a cracked statue than a living creature. Every fissure in that hardened crust seemed to slice into its fragile skin, making it shrink into itself against the cold. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. No creature should ever be left to suffer like this. I knelt down, my heart pounding. Its chest rose ever so faintly, one shallow breath at a time, fragile as a thread about to snap. Its eyes, clouded, empty, still tried to turn toward the sound of movement. There was no light left in them, yet instinctively, it was searching for me. My hand trembled as I reached out. It couldn't see, but that tiny nose brushed against my palm, then pressed into it, releasing a raspy, broken breath that tore at my heart. I whispered through the pounding rain, my voice breaking. "You can't see anything, but I see you, and I'm not leaving you." I lifted it up. The weight was so light it stunned me. A puppy should be bursting with life, wriggling, wagging its tail. Instead, it was barely clinging on, breaths cut short. Its wet fur reeked, clumps of mud cracked off, falling to the soaked cement like shards of broken pottery. Around me, neighbors hurried past under umbrellas, shopping bags in hand, not one of them stopping. In the downpour, this tiny life had been abandoned as if it were nothing more than garbage. Anger and fear surged through me at once. Anger at the cruelty that had thrown it into the dark. Fear because I could feel, deep in my bones, that maybe I had come too late. I pressed my hand against its chest, my heart sinking at the lonely, weakened rhythm beneath my palm. It was alive, but just barely. At any moment, the thread could snap. I yanked off the old wool scarf that once belonged to my late wife and wrapped it around the fragile body. The puppy buried its head against my chest, breathing in ragged gasps that sounded like a plea for help. Tears spilled into the rain as I whispered, "Not tonight. You're not going to die alone tonight." I stumbled inside, hands shaking as I grabbed the phone. On the other end, Dr. Carter's voice came sharp and urgent. "Bring it in now, Michael." "Don't wait another second," I hung up, clutching the pup against me, and ran to the car. The storm swallowed the night, rain blinding my windshield, but I knew this was the only road left for an old man's weary heart and for a blind, broken creature still fighting with everything it had to hold on to life. I held the little Doberman tight against my chest and ran to the car. The Portland rain hammered the windshield, each drop heavy as if metal were falling to the ground. I laid him across my lap, his tiny body trembling inside the damp wool scarf. Every time his chest rasped for air, rising and falling with painful effort, I felt my own heart stop in sync. I turned the key, and the old engine shuddered awake. Headlights cut into the black road ahead, rain slashing across the glass until the beams smeared into watery streaks. My hands gripped the wheel, soaked and shaking, not just from the cold, but from fear. Fear that every minute lost might steal the fragile life beside me. "Hold on, little one. Don't leave me," I whispered, my throat tight. I didn't know if he could hear me, but his tiny head shifted, pressing deeper into my chest, as if answering. I swerved hard onto the highway. The storm slowed traffic to a crawl. Then suddenly, flashing red lights blazed ahead. An accident blocked the road. A long line of cars braked hard, headlights flaring through the rain. My heart pounded out of control. Number. I couldn't stop here. I hit the hazards, rolled down the window, and thrust my head out into the storm, shouting until my voice cracked. "Please, let me through. I have a life that's slipping away." The driver in front turned back. For a suspended moment, silence hung tight as a wire. Then his car inched forward, leaving the narrowest gap. The one behind backed up. The line shifted. A path opened like a miracle. I pressed the gas, tears burning, mingling with the rain. The puppy still shook in my arms. My hand rested on his chest, feeling the broken rhythm of his heart. Each beat sounded like faint knocks on an old, hollow drum. Sometimes I had to press my ear close to be sure he was still breathing. And when I felt that fragile breath, I whispered again, desperate, "Don't leave me. Not you. I've lost too much already. I can't lose you too." As I drew closer to downtown, the streetlights glowed brighter. But in my mind, there was only one image, my wife's face, bent over knitting scarves on cold winter nights. The same scarf now wrapped around a trembling life, clinging to its last warmth. I gripped the wheel harder, telling myself, I will not let this scarf become a shroud. The rain kept pounding. The clock hands ticked forward, but each minute stretched like an eternity. I glanced down at the pup. His cloudy eyes cracked open, blind, yet straining toward the sound of my voice. That sight crushed my chest. A tiny creature with nothing left to hold on to, still trying to trust a stranger like me. When the glowing sign, Carter Veterinary Clinic, finally broke through the storm, my throat gave way. I swerved hard, the brakes screaming as I stopped at the entrance. Clutching him to me, I ran inside. Warmth flooded the lobby, but the body in my arms was still cold as ice. Dr. Carter appeared, her white coat spattered with rain from rushing out. She froze for a split second when she saw me clutching the pup, her face paling. "Michael, hurry. Get to the emergency room now." I laid him on the cold steel table. The soaked scarf fell away, revealing the frail ribs, the trembling body. His clouded eyes flickered open, then shut, as if light itself had given up. I gripped his tiny paw, my voice breaking. "I'm here, little one. Fight with me, just once more." The monitor beeped to life, registering a faint, faltering heartbeat, counting down the seconds. Dr. Carter signaled the nurse, her eyes both firm and heavy with worry. "We have to act fast, Michael. He's right on the edge." I squeezed the little paw tighter, unable to form words, only nodding. Fear wrapped icy fingers around me, but I bent close and kept whispering again and again, "Don't leave me. You haven't lived a single full day yet. Don't give up, Valor." The emergency room blazed under harsh fluorescent light. I stood there, soaked through, clutching the wool scarf now heavy with rain. On the cold steel table lay the Doberman puppy, so small it looked no different from a handful of ashes left after a fire. The monitor beeped, each heartbeat scattered and faint, like drops of water falling into emptiness. I gripped the edge of the table, my own pulse stumbling in time with every weak beep. Beep. Dr. Carter pulled on her gloves and bent close, lifting the clouded eyelids with her fingers. She sighed, shook her head. "Michael, these eyes are completely blind. Nothing can be done to restore them." Her words cut like a blade. My throat tightened, but I couldn't answer. Those eyes, blind as they were, had still turned toward the sound of my voice. I didn't need them to see. I only needed them to stay alive. Carter pressed her stethoscope to his chest. Her brow furrowed, her voice dropping heavy. "Heart failure. The rhythm is too weak. It could stop at any moment. And he's severely dehydrated. Hypothermic. The infection has spread." It felt as if the ground fell out from under me. I had braced myself for bad news, but nothing like this. words that sounded almost like a death sentence. "Tell me the truth, Carter," I rasped. "Does he have any chance at all?" She paused, then met my eyes. "Without surgery right now, he won't make it through the night." My trembling hand pressed against his chest. The faint thud beneath my palm felt like a whispered goodbye. I bent down, tears falling onto his mud-caked fur. "Little one, if your heart is weak, borrow mine. If you can't see, then borrow my eyes. I promise, I will not leave you." A soft whimper slipped from his throat. The sound was so faint it could barely be heard, yet it struck me to the core. He was still here. He still wanted to live. A nurse entered with a tray of instruments, the metallic clinking chilling the air. Carter nodded. "We'll take him into surgery immediately. Michael, prepare yourself. There's a chance. He won't survive." My fists clenched, my teeth ground together. "No, he has to. You don't understand. He didn't come to me to die in these arms. He came to live." Carter's eyes softened. She placed a hand gently on my shoulder and gave a small nod. "All right. Then we'll fight with him." They moved him onto the operating table. Overhead lights blazed to life, casting down on the fragile body. I stood on the other side of the glass, my heart suspended. Every movement of the doctor's hands, every clink of the instruments, felt like it was happening inside my own chest. For a moment, the monitor flatlined, the line shooting straight. I slammed my hand against the glass, shouting, my voice breaking apart. "Don't go! You haven't lived a single full day yet. Please don't leave me." Carter pressed her hands to his chest, her voice sharp with urgency. "Heart's too weak. Keep stimulating." The monitor flickered, stumbled, then returned to a fragile rhythm, a thin, uneven beep. My forehead pressed against the glass, my hands clutching the drenched scarf, tears falling without end. Inside, he lay motionless, breath rattling through the oxygen mask. Yet every faint beep told me he was still here, still tethered by the thinnest thread to this world. I whispered through the glass, my voice trembling like a prayer. "Don't be afraid, Valor. I'm right here." You're not fighting alone. No one in that room could say he'd survive the night, but in those clouded eyes, I had seen, not light, but something just as powerful, a fragile faith, a will to cling to life. The surgical lights burned down harsh and white on the tiny body of the Doberman pup. He lay motionless, wrapped in gauze, an oxygen mask covering nearly all of his thin face. I stood behind the glass, my chest locked tight, every breath caught in my lungs. Dr. Carter and two nurses moved in rhythm, instruments clinking softly. The air in the room grew heavy, silence broken only by the ragged beat of the monitor. Each faint beep, beep, felt like a countdown of the seconds left to his life. Then suddenly, the line froze, stretched flat. The piercing monotone screamed into the room. "Beep!" The nurse cried out, "Cardiac arrest!" I went numb. My whole body turned to stone. I pounded on the glass, my voice ripping out of me. "No! Don't go. You haven't lived a single full day yet. Please don't leave me." Inside, Carter bent low, her hands pumping on that fragile chest, steady but desperate. Her voice stayed firm, though I could hear the urgency crack beneath it. "Keep compressions going. Low-dose adrenaline now." But the pup didn't stir. His body lay limp under the blinding light. Each second dragged like eternity. I saw Carter's shoulders tense, the flicker of defeat cross her eyes, the same look I'd seen when a patient slipped away. I couldn't bear it. I pressed my head against the glass, tears spilling, mixing with the rain still dripping from my hair. My hands crushed my wife's old scarf so hard the knuckles split and bled. My voice broke into a whisper, trembling like a prayer. "Valor, I've lost my wife, I've lost my old friends. I can't lose you, too. If you go now, I'll fall apart." The long, monotone shriek cut through me like a funeral dirge, shredding my nerves. I screamed into the void, no longer caring who heard. "God, please, give him one more chance. Don't take this life away." In that moment of despair, Carter paused just long enough to press her ear to his chest, then motioned to continue. A nurse injected adrenaline through the catheter. The room hung taut, strung like a wire about to snap. Then, beep. A faint sound. I thought I imagined it. But then another. Beep. Beep. The flat line quivered, then lifted, fragile but real. The lifeless tone cracked into scattered living beats. Carter gasped, her voice cutting through the air. "We've got a signal! Keep going! Don't let up!" I collapsed against the glass, covering my face with both hands. Tears poured out, but this time they weren't only despair. They carried a dizzying, unbearable relief. Inside, Carter kept working with relentless precision. The tiny body twitched, a faint breath slipping through the mask. His chest rose again, shallow but stubborn. I pressed my forehead to the glass and whispered, soft enough to feel like it could seep through. "You did it? I knew you wouldn't give up." But Carter wouldn't let me cling to hope too soon. She looked up, her voice firm and grounded. "Michael, he just clawed his way back from the brink, but he isn't safe yet. We need to continue surgery to remove necrotic tissue and control the infection. It's still critical." I nodded over and over, pressing a hand to my chest as if to hold my own heart together. "Do everything, however long, whatever it takes. As long as he has a chance, I'll be here." Carter glanced at me, then at the pup. Her eyes softened. She didn't answer, just turned back to the table. Through the glass, I saw that tiny broken body, blind and wasted, still lying there fighting. And I realized it wasn't only the doctors battling for him. He too, with every breath left in him, was fighting for his own life. I whispered one more vow, etched into me like stone. "Valor, you're not alone. Tonight I'll walk with you through the valley of death." That night stretched longer than any night of my life. After surgery, they laid the little Doberman on a thick towel, wrapped him in blankets, and set him close to the heater. The white light in the recovery room fell across his tiny frame, making him look even more fragile. I sat right beside him, my eyes never leaving that frail chest. Each rise loosened my heart a little. Each pause froze me solid. The monitor kept beeping, steadier now but still thin. I placed my hand on the table, close to him, and whispered, "You don't have to fight alone anymore. I'm right here. Do you hear me?" He didn't open his eyes, but his small head shifted, as if he recognized that voice. My throat tightened. A blind, weak creature had chosen to trust me instead of giving up. Dr. Carter stepped in, glanced at the readings, and spoke softly. "He's made it past the immediate danger. But Michael, he's still very weak. We'll need days of close monitoring. Even the smallest complication could undo everything." I nodded, my gaze locked on him. Valor. That name had formed in my mind back in the operating room. It meant courage, and I knew if anyone deserved it, it was this pup. I stayed the whole night. I tapped my fingers gently on the table. Tap. Tap. Steady. His tiny ears twitched, then his head turned toward the sound. Through my tears, I let out a broken laugh. "That's right. Just follow my rhythm. If your eyes can't see, let this sound be your guide." I tapped again. He stirred, one little paw scraping against the towel, then tried to move toward the sound. But he was too weak. He collapsed, gasping. I quickly laid my hand on his back, stroking gently. Don't push too hard. Just hearing me is enough. The moment pierced me with both pain and warmth. For the first time in months of silent living, I had a reason to whisper, to tap, to send out a signal to another soul. At dawn, a few nurses came in to check on him. One young woman covered her mouth, eyes shining as she saw the pup's head pressed into my hand. She whispered, "A true little warrior?" I didn't answer, only smiled through tears. Because she was right. He wasn't just an abandoned puppy. He was a warrior, clinging to every breath. By noon, Valor suddenly stirred harder. He tried to push himself up on his front legs, trembling like branches in the wind. I held my breath, my hands ready. He wobbled for a few seconds, then collapsed back onto the towel, panting. I pressed my hand to his chest, my voice unsteady. "Well done. I saw that. You're trying. Every time you stand, you're taking life back." His clouded eyes cracked open. No light could enter them, but I felt he was looking at me in another way, through trust, and that trust made my chest ache. Dr. Carter returned, stood beside me, watched, and gave a small nod. "Michael, he has an extraordinary will. If he makes it through the next few days, his chances will be much higher." I nodded, tears sliding down. I had never prayed so much, never wanted to hold on to a life so fiercely. That night, I sat again by his side, fingers tapping, tap, tap, steady. This time, Valor didn't just twitch his ears. He shifted his body, crawling slowly, each move only an inch. I smiled through the blur of tears. "That's it. Just follow my sound. We'll keep moving forward together." In that sterile white room, heavy with the scent of disinfectant, surrounded by fragile heartbeats, I realized something. This blind puppy had become a mirror of my own survival. He wasn't surrendering. He was learning to rise from the edge of death itself. And I would be his eyes, his ears, and the second heartbeat he needed. 3 days after the surgery, the recovery room glowed with Portland's morning sun. The endless rain had finally stopped. The sky was clear, and the first rays slipped through the glass window, falling across the tiny body curled up on a thick towel. Valor's breathing had steadied, no longer the ragged rasp it once was. I sat beside him, tapping my fingers on the table in the familiar rhythm. Tap, tap, steady, the sound that had become an invisible thread binding us together. His small ears twitched, then his frail head shifted toward the tapping. I leaned closer, my voice trembling. "That's it, Valor. Follow my sound. Try one more time." I pulled from my pocket a small brass bell, once hung on my wife's old bicycle. I shook it gently, and the clear chime rang out, filling the sterile room with warmth. Valor stirred hard, his 4 legs trembling as he tried to push himself up. Dr. Carter stood nearby, watching, and said softly, "Michael, he doesn't have the strength yet. Be careful, he could collapse." I nodded faintly, though my heart raced. I believed. If he never tried, he'd never know he could. My eyes locked on him, I whispered, "You can't see, but you can hear. Let the sound guide you. Forward now." Valor trembled, his tiny body quaking like grass in a strong wind. One paw slipped and he crumpled, gasping. I started to rush forward to catch him, but stopped. His ears were still locked on the bell. Through strained breaths, he tried again. This time his front paws held firm. He lifted half his body, then his whole frame, standing shakily on all fours. The sight crushed me. I covered my mouth with a trembling hand. Carter drew in a sharp breath, her eyes shining. "Dear God, he's standing." Valor took a step. His legs wobbled and nearly gave way, but he forced another and another. The bell in my hand chimed in rhythm, leading him onward. I laughed and cried all at once, my voice breaking apart. "Good boy, Valor. Just follow the bell. I'm right here." The pup staggered toward the sound, every step unsteady but determined. Until at last, he collapsed, sprawling onto the towel, panting hard. I dropped to my knees, scooping him up, tears streaming. "You did it. You really did it." Valor stretched out his tongue, brushing my hand. He couldn't see, but he knew I was there. And he had chosen life, not to simply lie there waiting, but to rise on his own. Word spread quickly through the clinic. Nurses rushed in, standing silently at the sight. One young woman lifted her hand to her mouth, eyes brimming. "Oh God, he's a miracle." I didn't answer. I just held Valor to my chest, feeling that tiny heartbeat pounding stronger than ever. The next day, Carter allowed me to take him into the small yard behind the clinic. The grass was still damp with morning dew. I held the bell and shook it lightly. Valor lifted his head, ears sharp, then took cautious steps. This time not one or two, but more. He wobbled, nearly stumbled, but his tail wagged, his breath fast with excitement. I opened my arms wide. Valor ran into me, hitting my chest so hard we both tumbled onto the grass. I laughed through tears, wrapping my arms around him tight. "You've come back, Valor. And I swear, no one will ever throw you away again." My laughter echoed across the yard, mingling with the bell's clear chime. A blind puppy who once lay dying in the rain was now running under the morning sun, guided by the sound of hope. A week later, the lawn behind Carter's clinic was bathed in golden sunlight. Valor staggered forward, guided by the bell in my hand, his little tail wagging, ears perked high with excitement. Every step he took was a victory, proof that this blind pup had refused death and chosen life. I dropped to my knees, arms open. Valor crashed into my chest, hitting me as if he wanted to melt into my heart. I held him tight, his fur still carrying the faint scent of soap from his last bath. I laughed, but tears streamed down my face. From a distance, Dr. Carter watched with a kind smile. She called softly to me, "Michael, you've worked a miracle. But Valor needs a forever home. Today, there's a family who wants to meet him." I froze, my hand tightening around the bell. I knew this day would come. I had prayed for him to have a future, and that future couldn't exist only within my arms. But at that moment, my heart clenched as if I were losing part of myself. A middle-aged couple stepped onto the lawn. The husband, a veterinarian at a large hospital, had steady hands and gentle eyes. His wife, a music teacher, carried herself with the softness of a piano's touch. The instant they saw Valor, their faces lit up, melted with tenderness. The wife knelt down, her voice trembling. "Oh my, he's beautiful. And those ears. Will he be able to hear my music?" Valor tilted his head, ears pointing toward her voice. Then, as if he already knew, he shuffled forward, sniffed, and pressed his face into her hand. The woman broke into tears on the spot, her shoulders shaking. The husband placed a firm hand on Valor's back and nodded with certainty. "We'll take care of him. We'll give him everything he needs." I lowered my head, clutching Valor to my chest one last time. My tears fell onto his head, soaking into his soft fur. I whispered just for him, I promised I'd never abandon you, and I've kept that promise. From now on, you'll have a real home. But remember, I'll always be the bell in your heart." Valor licked my fingers gently, then wagged his tail. He couldn't see, but he knew. Knew these arms had carried him from the edge of death, and now let him go so he could run toward the light. I handed him to the husband. Valor nestled into the man's chest, releasing a long, relieved sigh, as if he had finally found where he belonged. The wife touched my shoulder, whispering through her tears, "Thank you. Because of you, we get to welcome a miracle." I smiled, though my heart ached. No. He's the miracle. He saved me from my own loneliness. Their car pulled away. Through the window, Valor pressed one tiny paw against the glass, turned toward me. His blind eyes couldn't see, but that gesture cut straight into me like light itself. I stood there, motionless, tears pouring as I watched him disappear down the road. My whole body trembled, yet my heart had never felt so full. I realized love isn't always about holding on. Sometimes love is letting go, so a life can receive what we cannot give. I lifted my eyes to Portland's clear blue sky and whispered to my late wife, "Do you see? Your scarf saved a life. It didn't just wrap a puppy. It wrapped my heart and opened the door to faith again." I turned back to the empty yard, the little bell still in my hand. I shook it softly. Its chime rang out, hollow but not lonely, because I knew somewhere out there, Valor could still hear it. Maybe by now you feel the same as I do, still trembling at the memory of Valor pressing his tiny paw against that window like a final farewell. I cried without end, but those were tears of faith, of love, of a miracle made real. And I want to ask you, have you ever saved a dog's life? If you have, please share your story in the comments. Let your tears, your smiles, your memories flow, so that no dog is ever left abandoned, no soul ever left alone in the dark. Every story you share is a light guiding another life back home. And if this story touched your heart, I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a single journey. Journeys where tears and love walk side by side, proving that no dog deserves to die in silence. Tell your story. Show the world that love is always stronger than abandonment.